To the clap. Hello, everyone. I'm Peyton with BSC Publishing Group. I'm here with Rami Unger, the author of the short story collection Hannah and Other Stories.
Hey
Yay!
everyone.
So, Rami, what's like a hobby or passion you have that might surprise someone?
I already mentioned that I really like ballet, so I won't say that.
Go watch that video if you haven't yet.
Yeah, go watch it. I really enjoy I actually make my own wine. I have a
Oh,
winemaking
nice.
kit. I made some plum wine that I had earlier this year that was really delicious. And I tried making some pumpkin flavored wine. Yes, you heard that right. Pumpkin flavored wine. That actually went bad, but I'm going to try again this year. And I also want to try making dandelion wine one of these days. I'm actually
Ooh.
going in order of the rainbow colors. So plum wine was red, pumpkin wine will be orange, dandelion will be yellow. I think I might do mint for green and blueberries for blue. I For purple, I don't know, maybe black raspberries or elderberries. We'll see.
Wow, that's really interesting. Just a little tangent for a quick. Have you ever heard of a game Genshin Impact?
I have heard of it. I don't know much about it.
I just mentioned that because in the first country, I'm not going to explain the whole game, but in the first country you go to, their specialty is called dandelion wine. The vineyards there.
Oh, well, that does not surprise me. There are plenty of people who've made wine from all variety of plants and
Yeah.
vegetables and fruits. Dandelions, rose petals. Um, you can probably, as long as it can be fermented, you can make wine out of it. Though obviously, you should ask yourself, should it be fermented, let alone made into wine?
I know. Ugh. Could you imagine like a mushroom wine? I don't know. I don't like
Actually,
mushrooms, so that sounds disgusting to me.
that actually could be something people made. You can make wine out of like certain types of milk. I know, um, cow's milk and goat milk
Mhm.
and even sheep milk. You could possibly make wine out of human blood, but I wouldn't recommend
No. Different horror story.
it. Indeed.
Yeah, so Hannah and Other Stories, there's seven short stories in there, all very different, all very interesting. I know, like a little insight to our editing process, but there was one story in particular that kind of had to go through a major overhaul. Not for anything bad, but just because we didn't really publish that type of writing. Um, so yeah, it kind of needed to be changed a little bit. I'm of course talking about What Error Awoke, a a really, really good short story that was originally Lovecraftian. But yeah.
Yeah. So I'm assuming a lot of you are horror fans watching this, but if you're not, H.P. Lovecraft, he was this author who wrote at the beginning of the 20th century. He was very influential in the horror genre, even if many people haven't heard of him. A lot of his stuff has kind of permeated into mainstream culture. Um, and his work was basically well known for these giant godlike monsters that just looking at them could make you go insane.
Mhm.
In so and how they influenced our world. And I wrote What Arrow Woke originally as a Lovecraftian horror story. And over the editing process, Peyton and Bree, they were both like, we would rather this be more Rami crafty than Lovecrafty. So can you possibly change some things around to better make it more original? I was kind of resistant at first because I really enjoy playing in the Lovecraft sandbox. I mean, a lot of different horror authors, many
Mhm.
of whom I look up to, love working in that sandbox as well. But after or some talking and some brainstorming, we I had an idea and I just went to town with it, and the result was the current draft of what Error Awoke. And even if things have changed, you can still see the Lovecraftian roots. You
Mhm.
can still tell anyone familiar with his mythos, or as it's called, the Cthulhu mythos, based off one of his more well-known creations,
Mhm.
can recognize the entity at the center of the story. I like to joke that among fertility goddesses, she's the goat. And that's a funny if you know your Lovecraft.
Yeah.
If not, I guess you might want to just look up Lovecrafted goats.
There will be a lot of interesting search results. But yeah, again, like what Error Woke, its original version, it was very good. I will say. Like the reason why we wanted to change was one, we didn't want to highlight Lovecraft. We wanted to highlight Rami, but also we don't really publish weird cosmic, unfortunately, just as we don't publish romance. So we wanted it more
Wait, you
as
don't publish romance? So I
not
can't submit.
romance centered.
Oh man, I was going to send you my new novel, Kissy Kissy Goo Goo,
Oh yeah, yeah, that's
a
not
book.
allowed. Sorry, that's
Darn
not
it.
allowed. No. B plot or C plot is great, but yeah, main romance can't happen. Just like how Weird Science, Lovecraft, we don't really do occultism either, but just hints of that is okay. So yeah, but most importantly, we didn't want to highlight Lovecraft. We wanted to highlight Rami because it's your book.
We also had to really be careful about how we highlighted certain current events
Hmm.
in the original story. And uh, you see, this particular story, What Error Woke, takes place within the past couple of years. And
Hmm.
honestly, when I first started writing it, it was a way for me to deal with a lot of what was going on then and what was causing me anxiety. And over many drafts and rewrites, it kind of became this story about how we get through all these traumatic world events. That being
Hmm.
said, we had to really uh, rename certain things so that they didn't hit too close to home.
Yeah.
I mean, you can like the Lovecraft references. You can still see the origin of these elements. You can tell what they originally were, but it's
Hmm.
done in a way so that hopefully it doesn't trigger anyone,
Yeah.
or it just doesn't make them go, okay, I'm done. I'm putting the book down. But I'm not finishing it, which would be a shame because this particular story is near the end of the collection. So it
Yeah.
would suck if someone put it down right then and there.
Yeah, I know. I won't say the disease. We renamed it the disease, which honestly I kind of liked a little better because it added a little like mystery to it, which to me
Everyone's
ups
gonna
the
know what it
horror.
is, though.
Yeah,
Everyone's gonna.
if you don't, you've literally been living under a rock for the past 3 years. Or you're a hermit, which kind of the same thing. But
Pretty
yeah,
much.
I do I do like that we changed it to literally just the disease because, like I said a second ago, I think it really does bring in that mystery in it, which is a good mood for what Error Awoke just through the plot line. Like, I'm not gonna spoil anything, but it's a thinker.
Yeah. And like I said, the story was a way for me to deal with all these anxieties I was
Hmm.
having at the time I wrote this. And I mean, what before I started writing this story and getting my thoughts out on paper, I just was a nervous wreck. I once spent an entire night up until 3 a.m. just watching anime because I wanted a distraction. I could not sleep and I just wanted a distraction. That made work the next day a lot of fun, believe me.
I know. I can't imagine. Well, I can, but kind of not. I can't imagine being in the main character situation of like constantly cooped up in an apartment alone. Like I at least I was in school during it. So I was sent home, but I had my cats, I had my mom and my brother with me. So like I wasn't completely lonely. So I can't imagine just being in an apartment completely alone, like what that would do to my psyche.
I'm I'm prefer my own space, so I was fine being
Hmm.
on my own. Though at times I did really miss interacting with people, and I just was like, I wish I could talk to people in person. What really
Hmm.
got me though was just not was that uh back then you didn't know what the incubation period was. It could be anywhere between a day and 2 weeks, so you never knew what was going in. Even if you just passed by someone, you never knew if that could lead to an infection. So
Hmm. Yeah, and that kind of happens in the story too. Um,
yeah, no, but we won't say anything else because we don't want spoilers.
yeah. Um, Maybe a little bit of a spoiler, but I would love
Oh,
if
should
you
we
could,
do a little reading?
yeah, please do.
Okay, well, then I think we should do a short passage.
Yes. Learn more about what's going on in the world.
Hmm. So this takes place pretty early in the story. In the very first part of the story, our main character Taylor, he's a graduate student teaching an English literature course, and one of his students has a freak out while they're going over uh, some classic British literature. You know, screaming in terror, pieces, pants. It's a thing. It's awful. Oh,
It's a
so
rough
this
time.
yeah. So this happens about a couple weeks afterwards, and let's get into it. Time passed. In the first week of February, Taylor returned from one of his own classes to the GTA office. Finding an open seat, he set up his laptop and made small talk with some of the other grad students while he logged on into his email and waited for office hours to start. To all who observed him, he seemed fine. However, as he checked his email, his thoughts were preoccupied. Once again, the student who had collapsed screaming the other day, Jake Dolland, hadn't shown up for class. Taylor wondered where the kid was. Was he in a hospital getting much needed help? Or was he too embarrassed to show up after having a breakdown and wetting himself in class? Taylor knew he wouldn't want to go to class if he embarrassed himself that badly. If he doesn't show up again soon, he'll be put down as having left the class unfinished, he considered. That won't look good on his record. I hope he gets back to class, though not at the expense of his mental health, of course. Taylor sighed. It was unusual to think of someone this much, let alone someone else he barely knew. Normally, if he was going to think of another human being this much, it would be someone important, like his ex, Yuna Horiguchi. Even after they'd broken up, he'd spent the better part of the fall semester thinking about her and wishing they were still together. They'd been talking about moving in together, her, but he was busy with graduate studies and she took on a huge course load for the fall. So they had no time for a relationship and had ended things mutually. Still, they'd been good together. Really good. So good that a part of him still hoped something would bring him and Yuna back together again. He'd rather think of the possibilities of that occurring rather than Jake Dolland and his freak out the other day. Excuse me, Mr. Moulton Reed, said a voice at the door. May I speak to you? Taylor turned around. Standing in the doorway was Jake Dolland. Oh, Jake. Taylor cleared his throat. It's been a while. I've been worried about you. Dolland smiled thinly. I understand I made a bit of a mess of your class. Sorry about that. Oh, it's no problem. Thinking nothing of it. More importantly, how are you? You feeling all right? Dolan sat down in a free chair across from him. I'm fine, for someone who had repressed memories suddenly brought back to the surface. Repressed memories? Dolan nodded. Yeah, the story we were reading, Fairy Princess or whatever. Fairy Queen. Yeah, that. Story brought back some things I'd forgotten, and they literally scared the piss out of me. Taylor's eyebrows rose on his forehead. The first book of the Fairy Queen brought back repressed memories? He didn't see how it could. It followed the Red Cross Knight in his quest with the Princess Una. At the point that Dahlin had collapsed, Red Cross and Una had come across the lair of Error, a monster that was half woman and half snake and who swallowed up her numerous babies to protect them from Red Cross. Red Cross represented England. Una was an idealized form of Christianity, and Error and her children were a villainized Catholic Church and its many decrees and edicts. But that was the extent of the story's depth. Really, the first book of the Fairy Queen was just a simple chivalric fantasy story with a lot of Catholic bashing. Didn't see how that could lead to repressed memories being unearthed. The confusion must have shown on his face because Dolan smiled wanly. Strap in, because this is one hell of a tale. Taylor leaned in. I'm all ears. Dolan took a deep breath. Well, a few years ago, I went with some friends to go hiking in the Swiss Alps, as you do when you're 15 on summer break. Taylor had no experience with such a life that allowed for extravagant summer vacations, but not at any way. Go on. Well, I went off to take a piss without telling my friends and lost track of them. Even worse, I somehow also lost track of the path, and my buddy had the map. I had no idea where to go, so, like an idiot, I just kept walking around trying to find my friends or the path, or both. In other words, you got lost. Yeah, that's not the worst of it, because you see, when I had to go piss again, I went behind a tree and did my business, and as I was zipping up my pants, the ground collapsed under me. The next thing I knew, I'd fallen into an underground cave system. Taylor nodded. He was starting to see a connection between the Fairy Queen and Dawn's experience. After all, Error herself lived in a cave in the middle of a deep forest. He was still unsure how that led to repressed memories, though. Well, the fall knocked me out, but I'm not sure for how long. My watch broke in the fall. All I know is, when I came to, I could see the stars through the hole I'd made. I had tried to climb out, but the walls were too steep. Still, my flashlight worked, and I didn't have any other options, so I followed the cave system to where it would lead me. I don't know how long I climbed through those caves. It could have been hours, or it could have been days. I had the oddest sensation of time moving funny, though I'll be damned if I can explain to you how I felt that. All I know is by the time I made it out of there and could see sky again, my flashlight's battery was running low on power. The kid shivered, and that's when things got scary. You see, the sky over my head was red instead of black or blue, which obviously was weird, but that wasn't the weirdest part. Not by far. The constellations above my head were unfamiliar, and the trees, they looked like they were made of human skin. He paused, his face terror-stricken again. For a moment, Taylor thought the kid was done, but then he continued after taking a deep breath. I was scared and confused, but I kept walking. I guess I hoped if I kept going, I'd find something familiar. When walking through hell, just keep walking, you know? As I got deeper into those creepy woods, things only got creepier. I kept seeing these creatures. It kind of looked like those dinosaurs with armored backs and clubs on their tails. The ankylosaurs? Except except they were 12 feet tall, covered in all this shaggy black fur, and had these sharp looking spines on their back. Their tails were 20 feet long and prehensile. I watched one wrap around a small animal like a python, twist around and fit its the head. Oh, and their heads! They resembled bull horns with curved horns and yellow eyes with horizontal pupils. Weirdest things I've ever seen. And to find out what happened after that, you're going to have to read the book.
I know. Those beasts. I hope we get some great fan art of them because
I
they
would
sound
love that.
really cool.
I would love fan art. If you can make that fan art and send it to me, I would greatly appreciate it. I
Yeah.
would love to see it, and I would. My favorite pieces I would likely hang up on my wall. In fact, I actually have a wall where I hang up my favorite pieces of fan art.
Yay. Let's add to the fan art wall, people. I know. Hopefully with like the little glimpse into some of the beast. They saw like if you know Lovecraft, you saw the bit of Lovecraftian, but if you don't know Lovecraft, hopefully you saw mostly Rami because the beasts very well designed. I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, I had a lot
Enjoy
of
them
fun
a
with this
lot.
story. He,
Hmm.
and I really enjoy reading that excerpt. I just feel like it showcases some of my best writing in the collection. So that's why I
Yeah,
use it quite a bit.
yeah, it really does. It's a very good. I know you weren't exactly happy when we asked you to make those changes, but I hope that you are really happy with the piece and you see where we're coming from and hopefully you think even it's even a little better.
No, I'm happy with the final result
Yeah.
of it. So I think people are going to enjoy it. I think Lovecraft fans will kind of understand why I changed some things around. I
Hmm.
mean, other authors have done that as well. King, in Revival, King didn't refer to any of the Lovecraftian in entities by their names. He used nicknames, but you could still tell who they were.
Hmm. And hopefully that happens here too. I'm sure it will. If they know, they know. Like But yeah, I'm really intrigued by, well, I know what's gonna happen, but I'm still really intrigued by what Jake saw and how that's gonna impact the rest of the story. Hmm. I hope you guys are intrigued too, all the watchers out there. Because if you're not, what's wrong with you? Come on.
They prefer these little sweet stories where everyone ends up happy. He
Yeah, all the sappy romances that they won't find.
kissy kissy goo goo the novel.
But yeah, thank you for reading that for us.
No
Um,
problem.
if just a little insight, like obviously, as we've been saying, Lovecraft was the original inspiration, but what when you made the revisions, what was your inspiration? Like, or was it just like poof, like boom, this is the beast?
I just wanted to I just tried to make something that would be both weird and recognizable to readers. The thing about Lovecraft, a lot of his entities, even when they're described, it's just an approximation of what they look like. So you have a lot of room to modify them on your own, so long as you keep certain details was
Hmm.
correct. So I was a big that was a big help for me when I was revising.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. I don't want to talk about the big monster because that'll spoil a little too much, I feel like. But She's definitely
True.
very cool.
Hmm.
Ooh, very creepy too. Ooh, sends chills down my spine.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how people react to that little reveal.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe even the story will cause people to check out the Fairy Queen, which it was another. Which obviously, I mean, it's in the title. We would not have this story. Everything all
Yeah.
right?
No, keep talking, please. I'm just gonna grab something really quick.
Um. Ah. Uh, well, obviously, this story is mainly inspired by Lovecraft, but it's also inspired by the Fairy Queen by
Yeah.
Edmund Spenser, some British poetry I read back in college.
Yeah, I
Uh,
honestly I bought this because of your story. Like I was very intrigued by it. So I got the little book one pocket edition for like $4.
I hope it has like a commentary because that's some very heavy stuff.
Yeah, I don't get much of it. But I don't practice religion or anything, so some of it just goes. It's a good read though, still. Very good.
And we mostly just covered the first book in that in that it's a one
Hmm.
big epic poem, and it's divided into sections called books or cantos.
Yeah.
And the first book of the Fairy Queen is where this error monster that I mentioned was, and I just thought that was some really interesting imagery. So it kind of just stuck in my head for the longest while,
Yeah.
and then I just had this idea of to combine it with some Lovecraftian elements, and then when the world kind of went crazy a few years ago, I knew what I could write my story around. And ta-da, we have all these years later, it's getting published in a fun new collection.
Yay. I know. As terrible as that time period was, like we got a lot of gems in the writing world.
Yeah, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Or
Hmm.
as Dickens might say.
Yep. So yeah, that was a little bit from What Error Awoke, one of the 7 short stories in the horror collection, Hannah and Other Stories. Rami, do you have any last comments you want to talk about?
Um, no,
Ah, too bad. Save it for another video. So yeah, go buy the ebook, pre-order it now at various sites such as Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Kobo. We have some foreign
international
realtors as well.
retailers.
Yeah, international realtors. You can pre-order it straight from our website, bscpublishinggroup.square.site/Hannah. Comes out September 23rd. September 23rd. So
Woo!
exciting. Ooh, just a few weeks away. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed that reading by Rami and the little discussions about it. You got a little insight into what Rami went through editing wise.
And that wasn't even the hardest story to edit, but we're going to save that for a different video.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's a good story too though. Not spoiling it, but a good story. But yeah, thank you, Rami, for chatting with me. Where can people find you?
I have a website where I post most updates, RamiUngerTheWriter.com. That's RamiUngar, thewriter.com. I'm also on Facebook. I'm on the site formerly known as Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads, and I'm on YouTube.
Ooh, yay. Yep. Go visit his blog, his website, go watch his videos, follow him on Twitter. I will always call it Twitter. Facebook. Yeah, go follow him everywhere. You can go see what else he's written, what else he's published. And yeah. So thank you for talking with me today. I
Thanks
hope
for
everyone
having
enjoyed
me.
watching, and we'll talk to you in another video.
Have a good night, everybody. Pleasant nightmares, and we'll see you around.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.